Welcome along to Journalism and Media Week 2020, day 2. Yes, we've already had one day, but we've got 3 more days left. And we've got some spectacular things happening on day 2. If you're a big Leeds United fan or a big sports journalism fan, Graham Smith coming up a little bit later on. Stephen McGovern as well from Channel 4. She'll be with us at 3 o'clock. We've got the Naked podcast. We've got Ben Hunt as well. But first, we have Reece Dinsdale, actor, director, currently in Emmerdale, and actually currently in Emmerdale, because unfortunately Reece is actually filming today on Emmerdale and can't be with us live. So luckily we were able to spend some time with Reece at the end of last week and caught up with him for a bit of a chat. So unfortunately he won't be able to answer any of your live questions, but if you do post your questions in the comments, then we will make sure that Reece gets those questions and we'll put those out at a later date, so you hear what he has to say about your questions. So you can always post those questions out and we'll get those to Reece very, very shortly. But until then, enjoy Reece Dinsdale, and we'll see you a little bit later on, but enjoy Reece Dinsdale. Take care. Welcome along to day 2 of Journalism and Media Week at Leeds Trinity University, live streaming on YouTube and on Facebook. This is actually a pre-recorded interview. We'll be talking about that very shortly. This is Worldwide Armageddon to the Woolpack, a live on screen. But coming up a little bit later at 11 o'clock, we've got the LGBT representation in the media with Ben Hunt from the BBC's LGBT correspondent. And 1 o'clock, we've got the girls from the Naked podcast, Jenny Eales and Kate Harborne. At 2 o'clock, we've got the Yorkshire Evening Post's chief football writer, Graham Smith's going to be joining us, talking about covering Leeds United. And at 3 o'clock, we've got Channel 4 lunchtime host Steph McGovern is going to be joining us live a little bit later on this afternoon. But as I said, this talk is Worldwide Armageddon to the Woolpack, a live on screen with actor, director, member of the Twitterati, Huddersfield Town fan, don't hold that against him. It is, of course, Reece Dinsdale. Hi, Reece. Thank you so much for joining us on Journalism and Media Week.
My absolute pleasure, Darren. Nice to be here.
It's lovely to see you. How have you found it over this last sort of like few months since sort of like lockdown? What's it been like for you?
Well, it's been like everybody else. It's been difficult, challenging, all the rest of it. I've also been very fortunate. I know we can come to this later, but I was very fortunate to get my feet under the table, as it were, at Emmerdale just before lockdown. And so that was the luckiest thing ever, because, of course, I have, as an actor, it's a rarity. I'm one of the few actors who has a job at the moment. So it's been bittersweet. But I would say for most of the time, barring the obvious things, it's been sweet. I've been doing okay. I've been making use of things that I've never done before, especially stuff online, and enjoying myself.
Yeah, it's been a strange. Everybody's sort of quite versed in how to do these sort of like online calls now. It's not so much of a big thing now, is it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much you want to talk about things like that, but we are all well versed, and I tell you, we just had a laugh ourselves because I just downloaded Google Chrome in about 1 minute and 3/4, which it would have taken me a month to do, just to be able to do this with you now. So I mean, I must be improving. I've learned something over the time, but no, online stuff played an important part of my lockdown, and we can talk about that if you want.
Yeah, no, we definitely will get into that, I think. But let's go back to how you started in the industry, because it was a while ago now. It was a while ago, let's be fair. But it was a while ago. Was it always part of when you were growing up? Is acting what you wanted to do? That was the be all and end all?
Well, it's certainly not in the family. My dad was at the time a miner, then worked in a factory. My mum was a health visitor, stroke nurse. So it wasn't on the agenda. But from the age of 12, it was, because I was kind of press ganged into a school play, a house play by the English teacher and a couple of prefects who were directing it. And it was one of those things that I'd never been particularly good at anything before. And I found that it was something I could shine at, and it was right. Okay, this is what I'll do then. I'll become an actor, which was totally unheard of in a northern mining town in the mid, well, in the early 70s when I made the decision in 72. So acting was not something I was planning for, but it came at me by surprise, and I went hell for leather for it. And never was to be shaken off the path of what I wanted to do. It became a real passion from the age of 12 that I was going to do that.
So what sort of avenue did you go down? Did you then a drama school, and that was what you looked at? That's how you did it.
Well, my parents knew nothing about it, and about how you went about such a thing. In fact, who would these days? I don't know. Maybe kids are more savvy these days, and maybe they are. Of course, they are. But then none of us knew anything. And there was a guy who taught English at some other schools. A friend of my mum and dad's from church, I think it was. And he said there's a very famous, well known to him magazine called Plays and Players, which was the industry magazine for theatre, not for television, for theatre. And he recommended that we got ourselves a copy. Where we got that from, I have no idea, because the local newsagent in Normanton certainly wasn't stocking it. But we got ourselves one, and in there was a list of drama schools that were the kind of the main 8 drama schools of that time, and probably still are. And we wrote off to all of them, and you had to pay something. It was ridiculous even then. But we had to pay something like £12 for the audition in London, most of them. Wow. Then it went up to ridiculous amounts in recent years. A lot of them now have stopped doing it, because it's a terrible thing to ask kids to come from all corners of the UK and
pay for it as well.
Pay for it and pay for train fares, all the rest of it, whatever. But they don't do it now. But I did, and I started going one by one to these meetings in London as a 17-year-old. Because obviously you were applying for them in, say, October, November, the year before you would go the following September. And I kept coming back from one, and cheekily, my mum and dad had opened the letter from the previous one the week before. And as they were picking me up from Wakefield Station, they'd be going, well, how did you get on? And I'd say, it was great. And they said, well, you got in the last one last week. And then they'd go down another week and they'd say, well, you got in that one. And it just was one of those things that had a momentum. It was meant to be, really. So I chose one of these drama schools and went to it, and spent 3 years in London I was just 18 and a month when I went down there. And I was 18 going on 16, really. I was a young kid, really. And but to be thrown into the middle of London in 1977, the height of the punk explosion, really.
Oh my God!
Phenomenal, though.
What a time to be there.
I absolutely loved it, and I embraced it, and soon this just 18 kid became 2021, and felt 2021. I'd lived 3 years at doing my thing. So yeah, that's how I started. That's how I got into it.
And what would you, coming out of drama school, obviously, I suppose you're in the right place at that point as well, because you're in London, and everything was sort of pretty much happening in London, I would imagine, around about that time. So you're sort of like close to all of the sort of like the major media, as it were. Was it easier then to sort of like get your first big break?
Everything was then London centric, as you say. Not so much now. It's great now. Things have changed. It's wonderful. But it was, and you had to go there, kind of thing. Very rarely did any actors make it from just, I don't know, how would you have made it? It was the route into the business. And at the back end of the third year, you got all the top agents in London, and they were all in London, to come and see your shows, the final shows, and then they do a specific agents evening. And it was like some sort of slave trade market, where they picked the one they fancied, and I got very lucky, very quickly. In fact, I left a term early because I got myself an agent, and who had very quickly set me up with a meeting for a repertory company. Now, in those days, and it's not true anymore, but in those days, you had to have an equity card, and that's the Actors Union. And to get an equity card, you had to be offered a role by a rep company, or you had to. A lot of my friends were doing gigs in clubs, putting together acts and playing, you know, with guitars and songs and doing what they're thinking.
Right.
An equity contract. Once you've got 3 contracts, you could submit it to equity, and then they'd say, well, you're a bona fide, you know, performer. We'll give you a card. The other way, the way that 3/4 of people did it was the way I did it, which was hopefully get a job in rep or somewhere like that. If you were very, very, very lucky, they're very, very rarely somebody would be plucked out of drama school and got given a leading role in some telly or something, and they'd somehow miraculously get you a card and what have you. That's not what happened for me. I went down to the Northcote Theatre in Exeter and played a couple of roles, in very small roles in a couple of pieces. One was Privates on Parade by Peter Nichols, and the other one was She Stoops to Conquer, I think it was, as well, like playing various servants and things. But the ball was rolling, you know.
Yeah.
And that's how we started.
So I suppose
London was the place, and you had to have your face in London, be around London. All the meetings were in London, all the screen tests, and I just got on a roll, really.
I suppose, and you mentioned it there, that, you know, a lot of the big media has moved up north now. That, you know, the BBC have got, you know, Media City, Channel 4 now in Leeds, ITV are big up here as well. So the change, obviously, in that, so the sort of access for people that are living up north, the access for people into the industry is a lot better now.
Oh, it's fantastic. I mean, there were no drama classes when I was a kid, and so, I mean, in fact, I had to join a little local amateur dramatic group, which was held by the farmer's wife, and there was the Baptist minister was there, and a couple of teachers from my school doing a bit of Amjam. That was the only thing that was available to me. Now there are acting classes held everywhere in all the major cities. For television, for theatre, and indeed, I've now given a bit back, and I teach at some of these places. But the opportunities now for kids to do their thing from wherever, you know, it's a 500% better than it ever was. Thank goodness. You know,
definitely.
Kids have always been, you know, been not punished, but, you know, had it tough, as it were, in making it into the industry, and there's still a question about, you know, working class kids have a tougher thing still, you know, but there seems to be a way through for the kind of more middle class kids to get there through private schooling and all the rest of it, but that's another thing entirely, I think. But anyway, no, I waffle on here, Darren. I'm sorry about that.
No. I always find you fascinating to talk to, so I think everybody else will as well. But I think
the world, Darren, is all I'm saying. You're dead right in your kind of question. It's changed beyond belief, and thank goodness for it.
Yeah, definitely, no doubt about that. And I wanted to touch on, obviously, a few of the things that sort of, like, you know, sort of stick out in my mind. I think most people would probably have first seen you maybe in the ITV sitcom Home to Roost with John Thaw. That would have probably been the first thing, maybe, because that the early 80s part for you, I think 1984 was like probably your breakthrough year, I'm thinking, because...
Yeah, I mean, you say that, and it's true. It's very true that Home to Roost was the first major thing, but it wasn't, in that I'd done, you know, in the year before Home to Roost, 84, beginning of, well, I'd just done a play at the Royal Court, which was kind of, you know, the holy grail for actors to go and work at the court. From that play, I was snapped up and did what we now know as the brilliant, even though I set myself the brilliant Threads, the nuclear holocaust, as it were, and another film I did, which was for David Putnam, called Winter Flight, a film on Thaw, with Roy Battersby, who was a most magnificent director, and played the leading role in that, with a very young Sean Bean playing his very first role out of drama school opposite me. But
did he die? Did he die in that role?
No, he didn't die.
Did he not? He usually does.
He was as green as grass. He was lovely with Sean. Actually, he came out. He had no idea as to how it all worked. It really, literally, was his first job at a drama school. And he'd come up to me and he'd go, "What do we do now? Is it lunchtime?" We go, "What do we do now? How do we get us food? Do they feed you? What goes on?" You know. But then he went on to be this, international superstar, and the rest is history. But I'd done all these straight roles, these really good, heavy, wonderful, meaty roles. So I was cooking by this time. But what happened with Home to Roost was that I was by now 25 in the late autumn of '84. I was 24 at that point. No, I was 25. What am I talking about? I was 25 in late '84, and they'd seen every kid they could possibly see for this role to play a 17-year-old in a kind of glorified two-hander with the great John Thaw, and they couldn't find the right guy to go toe-to-toe with him. So the producers and the casting director had seen me in this play at the Royal Court earlier in the year and said, "Let's try Reece because he looks 17. He really does look 17." So I went and screen tested with John, and we just hit it off straight away. It was just one of those things where I got the experience at 25 years of age to be able to walk into a room with John, who's a big hitter, and it was my hero, really. Me and my dad used to let me stay up and watch Sweeney in the 70s, and so I started in January '85 as a 25-year-old playing a 17-year-old opposite the great John Thaw. But the only reason it really worked was because I got this body of work behind me that had given me the experience to be able to do that, I think. That was a long-winded answer.
No, it's perfect, actually. And it leads us on. What we're going to do is we're going to have a little watch of a minute or so of the beginning of an episode of Home to Roost. So hopefully the technology will work here. And look, it is already working. This is amazing. Okay, here we go. So this is Home to Roost. Here we go.
Don't be alarmed. I'm not. It's me. I know. I didn't mean to frighten you. You didn't. How do you know it was me? The aisles are too close together. What's it for?
I'm just gonna stop that there because I love, I love that particular scene. It's fantastic. Straight away. I mean, look. I mean, it's just hearing that Yorkshire TV theme at the beginning as well. It just sort of sends me back in time. And like you say, an absolute hero of yours working with John Thaw. And I would imagine you learn so much. I always learn so much from people I work with on a day-to-day basis. But it must be exactly the same working with someone like John Thaw.
Absolutely. He was terrific with me. I think we had one crossword in 4.5, 5 years, and it was his fault, and he admitted it. But he was terrific, and he taught me tons just by working with him, just by doing it day in, day out. As I said, toe to toe, no room to hide, looking in that guy's eyes and bouncing off each other. It was just a joy. He gave me little bits of advice here and there along the way as well. One of the things that stuck with me was he said, "Reece, always keep coming out of a different corner, always keep them guessing." And there's one thing I've done, and I'm now 61, if there's one thing I've done in all this time, it's taken that advice. And I've done things that I'm proud of, and whether it be in film, theatre, television, radio, whatever it may be. and now directing and all the rest of it. So he was an absolutely brilliant man to work with. I mean, he wasn't, I think, by his own admission, he wasn't the easiest man at times. He was a very private guy. They say shy, but whether he was shy, I don't know. He was guarded. He kept his cards close to his chest. But I think I probably opened him up as much as anybody did. He used to start every morning with John in the same way, as if you'd never met him before. So it'd be like, it'd take you 10 minutes to just warm him up. Then when he warmed up, he was great fun and laughing and joking, and you could see his guard come down, and the great man that he was, and the great performer that he was. It was an absolute joy.
You mentioned this next clip that we're gonna show, when you mentioned this particular program, and I think of people of a certain age that will remember this with Cold Sweats, which is a show called Threads that the BBC did, where effectively a nuclear bomb went off in Sheffield, and I just remember having absolute nightmares about this show when it came out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to play the trailer. Actually, I've managed to find the trailer for this, so we're going to have a little watch of the trailer, and then we'll have a little chat about it afterwards, because it is it is pretty scary at the end of the day. So if you're of a nervous disposition, look away for the next 2 minutes.
The United States government has been forced, reluctantly, to take action to safeguard what it believes are legitimate Western interests in the Middle East. We are confident that the Soviet Union will take note of our resolve and will desist from its present perilous course of action.
There is growing evidence overnight from scientists and observers in many countries that there have been 2 nuclear explosions in the Middle East.
In response to today's news of the outbreak of hostilities between vessels of the United States and Soviet navies,
The Ministry of Defence has announced it's sending more troops to Europe to reinforce the British commitment to NATO.
This time, they are playing with, at best, the destruction of life as we know it, and at worst, total annihilation. You cannot win a nuclear war.
the time has now come to make everything ready for you and your family in case an air attack happens. When you hear the attack warning, you and your family must take cover at once. The most widespread danger is fallout.
Quite good. Attack warning. Is it for real? Attack warning. It's for bloody real. Is it? You can't just do a face like that. Don't get a kitty sign or something. Come on, quick, get down! Yeah.
Well, there we go. Threads. Just watching that back, honestly, it still sends absolute shivers through my spine watching that. I don't know about you, Reece.
Absolutely. Honestly, did the same just then. I hadn't seen it for 20, what is it now? 84 again. 35 years or something until about a year ago. And there was a showing at a wonderful place called the Square Chapel Arts Centre in Halifax. The film and a Q&A with me afterwards. And I took my kids. They were then 15 and 18. And they'd not seen it. Oh, man, it still had the same power. Yes, it doesn't have all the CGI stuff and all the modern technology that we can use now for film and television. But actually, that's what makes it even more powerful. That it just felt so ordinary, so down to, it wasn't flashy. If they made it now, we've seen so many disaster movies and things like that. You wouldn't quite get the same feeling from it. Then I was just thinking, oh my God, this film. And so many people send me messages still and say it's the most frightening thing they've ever seen. And they were forced to see it at school. And,
Yes.
Was that you?
Yes. I remember watching it at home and then not being forced. I did enjoy it, even though it was really quite scary. But it was all around that time. There was a lot of that sort of like nuclear threat and where the wind blows, and there was
the Americans did and all things like this.
That's right.
Threads was just so normal people you could identify with. It wasn't glamorous. It was a working class family and then a kind of a lower middle class girl. And the two of us meeting up together, and you could identify straight away. You knew these people; they were friends of yours, and all of a sudden they're in the midst of this chaos and this mayhem, this fear. I mean, it's parallels now with COVID and things.
Yeah,
it's extraordinary when you think about it, and just as an extraordinary piece of television, and it was then and it is now, I think. And I can say that, I think, even though I was in it, because I remember when we were making it, it was the most joyous experience. It was the loveliest group of people. The crews were fantastic. People say it must have been hellish to make. And I said, no, we really enjoyed it. It was a very collaborative piece of work.
Right.
We had our input into it and all worked really hard, but had fun and enjoyed it. And we didn't quite know, perhaps, what we were making. So I remember at the very end, they invited us to go and see it, a preview of it, in a ballroom in Sheffield, and one Sunday morning, and they invited all the what were then called extras, but are now called SAs, supporting artists, of all the people of Sheffield who'd helped us make the film. We all crammed into this ballroom, and we watched this epic drama. And at the very end, I took my dad, actually. I took my dad with me, my old man, and at the very end, there was not a single clap, no applause whatsoever, and all you heard were pockets, people crying around the room, and stunned, absolutely stunned as to what they'd just witnessed. I remember my dad turning to me and just saying, "Oh my God, son, we must never let this happen. Never, never, never let this happen." It struck a chord with so many people, and my now wife, who I've been married for over 20 years, I didn't know her then, and she joined CND on the back of that film. Little did she know she was going to be marrying Jimmy down the line, but it just was. It affected so many people's lives. Subliminal, is that the right word? I'm not sure. A piece of television.
Yeah, no, it certainly was. No, it certainly was. I'm intrigued as well. Like you mentioned there about how it was made, and obviously TV's changed in certainly in the way that it's made now, and the effects are a lot easier now. But in sort of basic terms, has the way you make TV changed dramatically, or is it pretty much the same as it always has been?
I've never been part of a movie where special effects have been in modern times. So I can't tell you. I'm sure there are things that have moved on, and it's extraordinary how the way they shoot things. But ostensibly, the television and film is made exactly as it was then. It's a script. It's good actors. It's a director with an eye. And crews and technicians were hopefully spot on, just doing their thing, and it's exactly the same really as it was. I mean, you can see things like Andy Serkis, an old mate from years ago. He does all sorts of things, doesn't he? He was playing chimps and this, that, and the other on green screens and all. And I've done it. Yeah. Actually, I did do a film with a green screen at the back as a backdrop for the whole film, and so yes, I did do that. That's true. But no, nothing's really changed in how you tell a story.
You mentioned there about a director that has an eye, and we've probably got a number of sort of like budding directors in going through sort of like the media courses and want to be sort of documentarians or maybe working in TV and TV directors. Do you know straight away whether or not a director does have that eye?
Yeah, you can tell when they're asking you to do certain things with shots and what they're doing. I mean, I've got interest in it because now I do it, so I enjoy it. So at the moment, we can talk about it in a minute, but I'm in Emmerdale and I'm enjoying the variety of different directors coming through that and seeing what they're doing. I've always got a little eye, whether I'm doing my scene and doing my thing with the actors, I've always got my eye on why they're doing that shot. What does that achieve if they do it from there? So you can tell somebody who's very, very confident with his shots and what he's trying to achieve. You just know, it's just a feeling that they're not just saying stand there, we'll cover it that way, and it will come tighter on that and tighter on that. They've got more of a vision about it, but you can't really tell what they're doing unless you're behind the camera and watching exactly how it looks. They come in all shapes and sizes, the directors, and I'm certainly not one of those people who is well versed enough to give you the most incredible shots and the most technical shots you could ever imagine. My thing about being a director is performance. So I know how to make pictures. I know how to. I always see the film in my head from my script. Then I read it the very first time I read a script that I've been asked to direct. I will put myself in a room on my own, not have any interruptions, and I have to read it and I have to see in my head that film. I have to create the film for myself in my head. And the job of me as a director, I think, is then to bring that image, that does change, but that first image you have in your head is usually the best. And because you've let your imagination go wild for a second with what the script is telling you. And so the job is then to bring alive those pictures. And so that through prep and through working with your DOP, director of photography, and whoever it may be, your designer, what have you, you're trying to create that thing in your head. So it's very important. You have to have that vision. You have to have the film in your head. You're nearly editing the film in your head as well. From the very moment you read it, you let your imagination run wild. You see shots, you see the area, the kind of tone and timbre of the piece from that original read, and I find it fascinating. So I have got that. I wouldn't be being re-employed as a director if I didn't have that. I think you have to have that. But my particular skill, I think, is because I'm a performer and I come from that world, is that I know how actors like to be treated. I know what gets the best out of actors. I know how they like to be spoken to. I know the little things that might unlock their emotions, or where they will do that extra thing for you because you've spoken to them in an intelligent way, hopefully, and with kid gloves. And actors are like racehorses. They can be frisky and they're ready to go, and and they need to be controlled sometimes and just placed and shaped a little bit. I really enjoy that. I don't know what your question was, Darren, but there you go.
No, you're absolutely right, because I'm intrigued about being a director, and I always think it's interesting, sort of like when you're an actor and you become a director, then automatically then you should know how to sort of like deal with actors on probably better than people that just go straight into directing. But also, is that something when you were acting and you're going through that process, do you automatically think yourself, do you know what, I wouldn't mind having a go at that myself? I think I could be quite good at that. At what point in your career did you think, do you know what, I could do better? I could do better.
I never thought that. It came out of the blue to me. It was an offer, and I was not looking for it. I've been a director now for, say, maybe about 9 years, 8 or 9 years, acting alongside it, but directing too. I was playing the central role in a drama for Jimmy McGovern. He does these wonderful dramas called Moving On that are kind of the old-fashioned play for today. They're 45-minute standalone dramas. They do 5 every year, BBC One. And I was playing as I said, a central role in one of them. And the producers said to me, just turned and said to me at one point, "You really should direct," which is a very strange thing to have said to me. They must have seen something in me about how I hold myself. I am around the camera, I am on the set, and how I talk with them, that they thought Reece would be good. And I had no idea, and I wasn't searching for it. And maybe I'd entertain. Maybe one day I could write a script, and I had done that. And maybe one day I could direct something. Who knows? But I'd never been. You know, I got to 51, 52, and I'd not done it yet, so it's hardly likely. And he said, you should do it. And then I thought about it. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to hold him to this. So I rang them up and I said, come on, then I'll do one. And I was given one. And I was very nervous. And how did I go about it? I actually storyboarded for myself on the blank side of the script. You know, there's the text, and on the other side, on the blank piece of paper, I drew every single frame that I could see in my head. I put it down on paper. I don't do this now, but this is what I did. And I did it, and I drew them. My drawings were terrible, but they meant something to me. And then I got hold of my director of photography, and we started talking about it and the things I liked. And then every day on the set, I'd show him what kind of this and that and the other. I don't know about lenses. I don't know about this. I'm not au fait with all that. I'm not technically brilliant. But he could see what I wanted, and luckily we had a rapport. And he was bringing to life my images, and I saw them, and they were exactly as I wanted them. And then on top of that, I was working with my actors, and I was getting good performances from people. So I was really chuffed with that. But I'd been so nervous because I wanted to get it right. And I thought, as a director, as an actor coming to the party, as that new director, if I come empty-handed, then I'm going to fail. So I didn't come empty-handed. I came with a bag full of thoughts and images. And it worked. And luckily, the DOP, when asked by the producer, how did you find Reece? He said he's the best. He was the best first-time director I've worked with. So I was absolutely thrilled, and I got the bug, didn't I? And I think my third one, here we am, I'm bragging now, but my third one won the RTS award for because these went out in the daytime. It's like a 2:15 slot on a Monday to Friday, once a week in the year. And you get star-studded casts. You get really brilliant actors to do them. They'll all do them. I've worked with so many fabulous people. And my one of the best daytime program, not just drama, not just up against anything. It won best program on TV in the year that was shown in the daytime slot. And I was absolutely thrilled and delighted. I've subsequently done about 6 or 7, maybe 8 of those, and a couple of episodes of something else, and then I've even directed a couple of episodes of Emmerdale. So it just, I don't know, it was an opportunity afforded to me. I took it, and it goes hand in glove with what I do as well as a performer, and one feeds the other. Whilst they're very different jobs, one feeds the other, and that's what I like about it now.
It's interesting you mentioned Emmerdale. Was that your route into Emmerdale then? Was because obviously you've been on Coronation Street for a little bit. You've done Waterloo Road, and then with Emmerdale, it was you directed a few episodes first before you.
Well, I was when I direct the dramas. You use single camera. And you shoot it as you would shoot a movie. That's the way it is. That's the way it's always been. Sometimes if you get lucky and there's a big set piece, you might be given a second camera for the day just because you need coverage and it saves time and all the rest of it. But I'd never thought of doing anything like Emmerdale because I was frightened, because I was really still a novice, and I don't profess to be a fully fledged director, really. I suppose I am now, but I wasn't been. I was shying away from it because Emmerdale, from soaps, they use the multi-camera system. They use 3 cameras, and it's like, you camera script it all, which I'd never camera scripted. I'd had these images, I'd drawn them, but I'd never written down. You 2-shot here, you cut in at that point here. This is on camera 3, that becomes camera 2. It's very complicated. It's like asking a student of history to do a chemistry test. It's very different. So I'd always shied away thinking, oh no, I couldn't do that. It's not my thing. And then a very good friend of mine who's a very seasoned director at Corrie and Emmerdale said to me, you should have a go because the stuff I've seen of yours is great. And it's just a question of learning. So they kindly let me go down to ITV last just this time last year, just a bit before, about September, to shadow my friend, just to have a little look how it went. And it was complicated, but he said, if we're going to do it, let's do it old school. Let's do it right. Why don't you learn how to do this with me? And he's a good tutor, very good. And I was a good pupil, I think. And I worked my arse off, and I mastered it. It was very fast and furious. And I did 2 episodes. He gave me, of his 8 episodes, they gave me 2 to shoot. And I did it. I did it with the vision mixer and calling the shots in the gallery, which is nothing like what I do. And it was fascinating, and it was difficult, but it was rewarding. I thought, come on, Reece, this is what life's about. These are the challenges that you take. And I was there. This long-winded answer to your story, to your question, but I was there on the very last day of my shoot. I was doing a scene in a prison between Mark Charnock and Zoe Henry, two very fine actors, friends of mine, but they played Marlon and Rona in the show. And I got called, can I go upstairs for a meeting with the exec producer and the producer? And I'm thinking, this is my last day of shooting. They can't sack me. I mean, it's too late. So I went upstairs, and they offered me the sofa rather than the hard chair. So I thought, well, I've got all the cards here. Something's happening. And they said, we've loved what we've seen you do as a director, and we'd like to one day ask you to come back. And my heart sank. I was like, what? Why not now? Why not soon? And they said, because we want you to be in it in the meantime. And I certainly wasn't looking for that, because I was going in to master the art of multi-camera. And but I thought, what a great way to get to know the building, the actors, and all the crews, and everyone who works there, for the day when I perhaps might go back and, well, I will one day go back and do that. And so, yeah, there was method in my madness, but I'm there by accident in Emmerdale. I really wasn't looking to be anything.
Well, I tell you what, let's have a little look at you in Emmerdale right now. Okay, so here we go. This is you playing Paul with a clip of you, I believe, attacking Vinny, I believe. Here we go. Just unmute that.
You know, idea what that was like, eh? Knowing it was there. And yes, I did try and fight it before you say anything, but I had this tip on an accumulator and you couldn't help yourself. I know it's hard to understand. Believe me, it is hard to explain, but when the first horse came in, I thought it was the start of a streak, you know, and then the next one lost, and the one after that, and I had to try and do something to get the money back somehow.
But you didn't, did you? Instead, you blew everything we'd got.
Hey, I won that money in the first place. It was mine to do with what I wanted.
How can you even justify it?
Because I have to. Don't you get it? If I stop to think about what I did, I start hating myself. And that makes me want to bet even more to get myself out of the hole. If you want to understand, I am telling you the truth.
You said you've beaten it before. You can do it again.
As easy as that, right? I just read a pamphlet and I'm cured.
Then why come back? Why make Mum fall in love with you all over again if you're going to give up like that? And what about me? All that talk about making up for lost time.
Listen to you on your moral high ground. I don't need reminding how much I've let you down. It's all in here. Every last wretched thing stamped on my brain. The truth is, you have no idea what I am going through right now. And if you did, you would leave me alone.
Listen, we can still talk about it, all right? It's not too late to get help. What about your sponsor?
You don't get it, do you? There is no sponsor. I lied just to shut you up. To stop you nagging at me every 5 minutes, banging on about wanting to help. You have no idea what this is like.
So you lied to me about everything.
Do you honestly think I don't despise myself enough without having you pointing it out to me all the time?
Wow, he looks like a lovely chap, doesn't he?
Yeah, you threw me a curveball there because I don't watch myself anymore.
You are very good.
And I've just seen it, and I'm going, oh, yeah. Yes, it's a very dark story. And
he's a fun character to play, I would imagine, though. Playing
well,
something like that.
it has been incredible, and he'll hopefully continue to be for a while. But yeah, it's all about gambling and domestic abuse, and I didn't go in there playing a villain. You know, I went in. I thought, how do you play this? You don't go in, signaling what you're going to do. So I came in trying to be just a normal, nice guy. I had a few demons, and they keep throwing this script at you that's getting darker and darker. And you're going along with it. Oh, where they're taking me now then? So it's an extraordinary piece to play. But I knew that he was going to go into these areas, but I just thought, well, I don't want to show anybody signal it. So, but we're now getting to the meat of it, as it were. Yeah. Extraordinary series, I can't tell you.
You look good, Reece. You look good. Look, we're running out of time. I could honestly talk to you for so long. We've not even had a chance to talk about ID. Yeah, no. Let's just carry on. But I wanted just to finish off. If you had some advice for someone that's sort of like maybe setting out in the industry, setting out from university, from media, from journalism, and going in, trying to get into the industry, what advice would you give students?
I feel for them all at this moment in time. I really, really do, especially the young people who are in our business and in the performing arts and things, because in these COVID times, we've seen how little regard this, I don't want to get political, but this obviously is so obvious not to mention it. This present government hasn't really looked after us in the best way possible, and how we're going to go forward from this point on, I really don't know. That hit you just saw then was a socially distanced 2-meter hit. It was camera angles and everything. We're not working in the way that we always work. The actors are never next to each other. The 2 meters, even the crew, the camera has to be 2 meters from me all the time. This is not normal. This is not good. And we're doing our best, but it's not ideal in any way, shape or form. Even as a performer, you can't get close to an actor. And if you're in a love scene, you can't feel it. You can't express properly because you're thinking, she's walking towards me that way, I better go that way, 2 meters, blah, blah. So first of all, the industry is very different and it's changing. How are we going to come through it? I don't know. So I wish every single student that you've got with you all the very best in these tough times. It is going to be tough. If we were talking about the old ways before COVID, I would say there is no substitute ever for hard work. I know that's like your dad talking, but it is the truth. I've stayed in this business and with this such longevity because I have paid my dues, and I have every single job I've ever done I've treated with respect and with professionalism. I know that. I'm not bragging. It's just the truth. I do my homework. I work hard to cover all the bases. I make sure that I'm there and I'm prepared. If you're a director, if you're an actor, whatever it may be, the same rules apply. If you're a boom operator, the same rules apply. Make sure you're there. Make sure you're prepared. Make sure you're committed. Because if in these new times, one person is going to get the gig, it's the one who's got all the commitment in the world. And somebody else, some get through the net who have not got all that celebrate. That's the way it is. Some people get lucky, but the majority do it because they care and it's hard work, and they just immerse themselves in the profession that they want to be in, and they know their onions. So hard work. I know it's boring advice, but you don't get out for out, as they say, and that would be the main thing. And put yourself out there. Just talk to people. I didn't used to be on social media. I've never done it until I was 58, and I realized that the world was changing finally, maybe too late. And I put myself out there, because it's the way it works. I don't like it, the fact that that's the way it works, but it is the way it works. Have a profile. Do talk to anybody in your business. You get a chance. Any professional in your industry, you get a chance to talk to. Bend their ear. Turn up somewhere. Talk to someone. Watch me waffling on this. You might learn something. It might not be much, but you'll get something. And show willing. Turn up. Open your ears. Work hard.
Great advice. Absolutely great advice. I'd be happy if you were my dad. Reece, thank you so much for your time. We really, really appreciate it. And best of luck for everything in the future. And hopefully we'll be able to get back to seeing you in a theatre soon. Reece's Pieces, obviously, down at the Playhouse. But hopefully things will start getting a little bit better in times and soon. Hopefully, anyway. Very sorry.
Thank you, Darren. Lovely to see you.
No, lovely to see you, Reece. Don't forget, of course, next up at 11 o'clock, we've got LGBT plus representation in the media with Ben Hunt, who's the BBC's LGBT correspondent. But thank you very much for joining us. If you've got any questions for Reece, obviously this has been a pre-recorded interview with Reece. If you've got any questions for Reece, then you can obviously comment in YouTube and Facebook, and we will definitely pass those on to Reece for individual comment. Okay, but thanks very much once again, Reece, and take care, and we'll speak again soon.
My pleasure. Good luck, everyone.